Hi everyone, Sawubona, Unjani. I do still remember a little bit of my Zulu that I used to speak to the people in the area that I grew up in. As you would know, if you're South African, obviously, Zulu is spoken in certain areas, and then you have other languages that are spoken in the other areas. So I learned to speak Zulu a little bit and Sotho, or was it North Sotho? Anyway, one of the two. So I can still remember the very basics of those, even though it's been more than 16 years that I've actually had to speak that language. So how are you all? It's nice to see you again. And today is already day 8 of the live streams. It is just flying past, and so is life. Every morning I wake up, I'm like, oh, another day has passed, and it's like, oh, I still wanted to do so many things, but then I'm like, oh, and it's another day. I can't wait to get started and get everything that I want to do for the day done. So it's almost like a hamster on a wheel sometimes. However, I am enjoying this wheel that I'm on. So I'm enjoying bringing this live stream to you every day and learning so much more from you guys as well. All the messages that I've been receiving, it's just been fabulous. So today I'm going to tell you a little bit more about the most adventurous thing that I have done. Now, when I sat down to think about what I'm going to tell you, I was like, oh, how do you define adventurous? Like, what's included in adventurous? Is it only adrenaline-based activities, or could it be something that's sort of regarded as out of the ordinary as well? Because obviously there will be different answers for that. But I'm just going to try and stick to adventurous things and a few out of the ordinary things, or things that most people probably wouldn't be doing. So the first one that I want to share with you is my bungee and or bridge swing that I did. So I did bungee jumping at the Victoria Falls in Zimbabwe and loved the Victoria Falls. The bungee aspect of it was a bit, of course I was a little bit nervous before I went down, or a lot nervous. But I think the problem for me with the bungee jump was that as soon as I jumped off and you get to the bottom part and the rope sort of stretches and it slings you back, that sling aspect and you being tied to your feet, obviously hanging head down, gave me a massive headache, like a migraine really, because of that force that it pulls you away, and so all the blood that suddenly just gets whoop into your head. So that was not so nice, because then I had this pounding headache for the rest of the jump that I went up and down, and I couldn't really enjoy what I was doing. But apart from that, yeah, it was a cool thing. And then they take you down and put you on a little boat that they try and get you to the side with, because of course you're doing this over the big mighty Zambezi River. The bridge swing I did was, so I might just add, the Vic Falls one, the bungee jump was in standard 9 for me, which is the equivalent of year 11. The Vic Falls, the Groot's River bridge swing was when I was around somewhere at university days, my early university days. And as I said, yeah, I did that at the Groot's River, and that was better, much better than the bungee, because I didn't have that sudden blood flow that goes to my head, which is rather painful. So the bridge swing was cool, and I could more appreciate and enjoy it. Yes, it's still a freaking scary kind of experience, and you've got all the adrenaline rush happening. But you know what? That's what you do it for. It's to get that feeling of, woo! And then once you get down, you have this relief and like, oh yeah, I did it. I managed to conquer my fear of jumping off this very high thing. And yeah, it's sort of, once you take that step of going over the edge, you have to do a mind over matter, because everything in your brain, in your body tells you that you cannot step off because you're going to fall off. And it's like, oh, well, what can you do? And then as soon as you step off, again, you just got to keep mind over matter. No, I didn't actually scream anything. I know they say you can scream Geronimo or whatever. It's like, for me, I'm not the kind of person that starts screaming when I have a thrill ride. You know, similar to all these other thrill rides that you can do at the theme parks. One I really don't enjoy is the boat one that goes, because that just makes me nauseous. Then another adventurous thing that I did, which was probably, I'd have to say, my favorite, was the whitewater rafting that I did on the mighty Zambezi River in Zimbabwe, which was the same holiday actually than what I did the bungee jumping in. And that was such an incredible experience. I'm so glad that my dad bought the video afterwards, because they make this whole long video. It's a big trip for those who haven't done it yet. It's like half a day or 6 hours or something. It's a long time, and it's one of the most thrill riding, shall I call it, whitewater rafting experiences in the world. I'm pretty sure it's quite something. It's not a very easy going river, and so they give you quite a bit of training before you actually go down. I don't know if they still do it, to be honest. They might, but anyway, I did this twice, quite frankly, and so much enjoyed it. And I was also at school when I did it. But the difference between the whitewater rafting experience and, say, the bungee jumping or the bridge swing is that the whitewater rafting is such a long, protracted, shall I say, event. And so you are nervous for about 6 hours nonstop. Whereas with the bungee, you're nervous, you do it and it's done. You know, it's like half an hour over and done with, or the actual really scary part is only the part where you jump off. Whereas the the whitewater rafting, you are pretty nervous most of it, because you don't know what's going to be around the corner as you go down with a dinghy, and you're in a team on the boat with your life vests on and your helmets. Mind you, the first time we went, we didn't have all the protective gear similar or as we had the second time I went a few years later. So yes, it was very, very scary. And after I finished that whitewater rafting, well, not only me, everybody, all of us, we were dead tired. Then another thing that I did, but this was sort of ongoing through my, shall I say, school years. We had a farm, which is like a nature reserve type farm, not a farm where you have crops and cattle and things. This is like, we were part of a bigger group of people who all owned a piece of land within a nature reserve. And that was on the Elephants River. That was the border. And our farm was on the river. It was so beautiful. We used to swim inside the river, or in the river, as you do, because you don't swim out of the river, do you? But the thing is, it's a mighty river, and sometimes it's more floody or has more floodwaters come down than other times. But the danger is not necessarily in all the floodwaters that come down. The danger is below the surface most of the time, because there are many crocodiles and hippopotamus. But you learn to see where they are. You learn to look out for them, to know where crocodiles would hide or live or stay during the day and during the night, and similar for hippos. You know that hippos are in the water 90% of the time during the day, and at night time, sort of with sunset, that's when they go out of the water and they start looking for food, because they graze on grass and plants, basically. And the danger with hippos, I don't know if you know, but hippos are actually, I think, the animal that's killed most people in the world, pretty much. Not crocodiles, or more than crocodiles. I'll have to check the facts precisely, but they're more dangerous than crocodiles because they kill more people. Because what happens is people get caught between the water and where the hippo is, if the hippo goes out of the water to go and graze. And so when the hippo wants to go back to the water and there's a person here, that's when there is a problem. And that's when the hippos attack, which has been really interesting. You'd think crocodiles would be much bigger of a risk. So with the crocodiles, obviously you know what to look out for. You can sort of see their eyes and their nostrils sticking out. And clearly, if you can see a tail and a waddling kind of motion that goes in the water, then you know where the crocodiles are. And they tend to like more quiet waters, not rapids for the crocodiles. So sandbanks and those kinds of things. So we knew exactly what to look out for and where they would most likely be. But yeah, we swam, and sometimes we didn't necessarily know they were there. And then once you sort of threw it and you realize, oh, because often we used the dinghy to go on the river. Other times we would just swim in the river. And then you realize, oh, there was a crocodile. But nobody that I know have ever been injured by a crocodile, bitten, injured, or by a hippopotamus. And we spent many hours of fun times and holidays there at this farm. Probably every school holiday we would go there for at least a week. So that was just a gorgeous place. And that's probably one of the things I miss the most of South Africa, is our farm, essentially. The going there and being in nature and being out with the animals, because we also had other animals in the nature reserve, like zebras and giraffes, and we didn't have the big five there. Well, not officially. But as you know, some of these animals do roam, and so there were leopards from time to time in that nature reserve that we were on. So yeah, I miss that, but I don't think it anyway would be the same if I were to go back to South Africa. I have visited it again because some of our other friends who still live in South Africa still have their land there and their holiday houses there. So I have been back a few years ago, but it's just too dangerous at this point in time. I'm too scared to go there. Even like when we were in South Africa, I am literally too scared to go there because of safety concerns, not of the animals, but of being attacked and robbed and murdered by other people. So yeah, because it's also far away from any help really. So yeah, it's concerning. Then traveled around Australia. That is the other thing that I've done that is very much not an ordinary kind of thing. Because most people want to go one day and they put it in their bucket list and it's like, I'd love to go and do that, and they just don't actually really go and do it. So I'm very glad that Kyle and I managed to plan our things and get it sorted so that we could spend a good chunk of time, which in our case was 4 months, to, I want to say bite the bullet, it's not that, but to really invest and get it organized and make it happen, because it was a massive organization to get everything, all the ducks aligned. We rented out our house as an Airbnb, 2 parts of the house that needed to be organized, because we pretty much had to take out, like, you know, all these kinds of things that you see. We had to make it into spaces where people would probably use it as a holiday house, as opposed to what we have it like, because this room is like our study. So we had to make it into a place where people could sleep, and there was a lot of organization beforehand, and we took out our private things, like the stuff we didn't want to share with the guests, and we had to put that in storage. And you've got to plan things like what happens to your mail and bills that got to be paid, and who's going to mow your lawn and who's looking after the dogs. So it was a massive organization, and the actual trip itself was a big thing as well, because you needed to work out where you're going to go and how you're going to do it and what you're going to pack. And we were ordering things online in advance so that we had everything that we thought we might need on the trip. Just remember, when you're traveling for 4 months like we did, you're pretty much traveling nonstop, like moving nonstop. It's not like we were stationary at a point for a long period of time. Australia is humongous. It's very, very big. For the 4 months, we had to travel at least 3 hours every second day to be able to just make it around. And that's not talking about going to, you know, little bits and pieces in between if we wanted to go see. We literally had to that was just to get around Australia. We worked out we had to do 3 hours every 2 days. So traveling around Australia, that was definitely one of the more adventurous things that we've done, or uncommon kind of things. Then another thing I did was I paraglided. I tandem paraglided, and this was in Pretoria North, around university age, in my 20s. Seems I did a lot of things in my 20s and not much later than that. Looking back at it now. But just shows you how life changes, because now with little kids, I've got other things that I need to take into consideration. And, you can't just quickly jump in your car, drive somewhere and do something. You got to always keep your other little human beings in mind and make sure that they're catered for, and do other things with them, like traveling around Australia. And two more things on my list. The one is that I do have an open water diver's license. And I did this in South Africa as well when I was at university, so around 20 years of age. Dived in Sodwana, which is where I completed my license. And I haven't actually used that much afterwards. I'll probably have to do a refresher course. Obviously, I've snorkeled quite a bit, especially when we were at the Great Barrier Reef recently with our trip around Australia. But as for diving itself, I haven't dived much again. I did find that I got a little bit of claustrophobia under the water if I went really deep, concerned that I was gonna, my mask was gonna come off. Because when I did my training, and you have to practice, obviously, you'll know if you've done your training that if your mask comes off accidentally, you can put it back under the water. And when I did that, I really struggled to get it back on. And the one specific time when I had it back on and I was like, when you blow hard into your mask to get the water out, fill it with air, and then you put your mask back on, I didn't quite do that right. And as I opened my eyes and started breathing again after I did this massive and expecting that my mask was then going to be clear at that point, it wasn't. And so I breathed in all this water, and I was 10 meters, 15 meters under the water, surface of the water, 10 meters, 15 meters deep. And you will know that you cannot just then go up, swim up to the surface of the water. You have to go slowly, because you've got to equalize as you go up and let your body get used to the different pressures. And so I started panicking, because now I was choking under the water. I can't see anything because my goggles, that's an Afrikaans. Typical example of what happens if you're South African Afrikaans speaking, living in Australia for 16 years, and you start using Afrikaans words in the middle of an English sentence and almost don't realize it. And it's like, oh, wait a minute, that word doesn't really fit into that sentence properly. So as I was saying, I got panicky because I was trying to breathe and I had my glasses on, and then I started choking because I thought there was only air in my glasses, in my goggles, but then there was water in. And when you're choking, your eyes are closed, you can't see anything, and I can't get my goggles back on. And then what do? You just want to get out to the top so that you can breathe again. And so anyway, it was a really nerve-wracking experience for me. So that's something that I keep in the back of my mind, unfortunately, and we'll have to really get over that one again if I would want to dive. I'd probably want to dive again at some point in the future. Bucket list maybe. And the last thing, I think that's quite an adventurous thing to do in a way, or a less common thing to do for a lot of people in the world, is I moved countries. So yes, as you can see, I now live in Australia, and I think that takes quite a bit of guts for somebody to move to another country. It is not by any means an easy thing to just do. It takes guts, it takes planning, it takes perseverance, and I'm so glad that I stuck through it, because getting to Australia and now having experienced for a number of years what it feels like to live in a country where you don't actually have to stress about the same things, the primary things that you have in life that you stress about in South Africa, makes for such a difference in the quality of life. The stress is so much off my shoulders because I don't have to look over my shoulders all the time, which is what I had to do when I was living in South Africa. That's the way that you live in South Africa. You constantly do this. You have such strong neck muscles, in a sense, because everybody there, you don't even realize that you do it all the time in South Africa. You're constantly looking over your shoulder just in case there's somebody that might approach you, shall I say, inappropriately, that might attack you. And when you're driving in your car, it's like looking for a blind spot but you're not looking for a blind spot, you're actually looking to see, once you're going to stop at the traffic light, whether there's somebody approaching your car that wants to smash your window and either shoot you or take your car from you. Smash and grab, or just grab your handbag, whatever it might be. So you're constantly looking over your shoulders. I find myself still actually doing that a little bit here in Australia, not because of Australia, but just because that was so traumatic to me in South Africa, having to go through those things, that I actually still get nightmares when I sleep sometimes. Every 3 or so weeks, I find myself waking up with like heart palpitations because I had a nightmare dreaming that somebody is trying to murder me, and I'm in South Africa. So yes, I'm so thankful that I'm here now and I don't have to live with that constant fear of my or my family's safety. And so moving to another country is quite an adventurous, in my view, thing to do, because you've got to have guts and determination and perseverance to follow through with that action. And I'm so glad I did. Okay, thanks so much for listening to my adventurous things that I've done in my life. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 things. What have you done in your life that's been sort of out of the ordinary or adventurous, like an adrenaline kind of activity, or something that required you to take a bit of guts to do, and that you obviously or hopefully enjoyed afterwards? Hit me up in the comments below and I'd love to read them. Maybe there's something there that you will inspire me to do and I can add it onto my bucket list, because I am actually ticking off my bucket list as I'm going. Remember, that's one of my big things that I aim to do, is to tick off on my bucket list, not just fill it up or make the list longer. I actually do try actively and achieving some of my bucket list items. So let's see if you can add something below. I'd love to read it. And then, very importantly, please come back again tomorrow. Oh, and of course, hit the like button if you enjoyed this video, if you're enjoying this series of getting to know me. If there's anything else you'd like to know of me, please let me know. I'm an open book and I'm very happy to share with you those things that you might not know yet. And then let's just see. Come back tomorrow, because tomorrow I will be telling you about what is something I love about this amazing place that I now find myself living in, called Australia, land down under. Thanks, boys and girls, and I'll see you in the next one. Adios, amigos.